was 4 months along when I got the news that there was something wrong with the baby. I was totally unprepared. There were problems with the way the brain had developed, and they didn't think the baby would survive. I just never thought this would happen to me.
We went in for a routine appointment, and the doctor couldn't find the heartbeat. I knew from my other appointments that it didn't usually take so long. After what seemed like an eternity, the doctor brought in an ultrasound and told us that the baby had no heartbeat. At first, I couldn't believe it. It was just there a few weeks ago. It was like it was happening to someone else, not to me.
The pregnancy was a surprise in the first place. I didn't think I'd get pregnant since it took me so long to get pregnant the first time. We got really excited, especially for my son to have a brother or sister. First, my blood tests were abnormal. Then they did the amniocentesis, and that's when they told us about the problem with the chromosomes and how the baby would have so many problems. We just kept thinking about our son, who has some behavior problems already. It just doesn't seem fair to bring a baby into this world with so many problems.
I was at work when it happened. I wasn't feeling well the night before, but I went to work anyway. I started feeling some dripping, and right away I knew something was wrong. I called my husband, and he met me in the ER. They sent me up to labor and delivery right away. So many people came in and out of the room, and we didn't know what was happening. I went back and forth thinking, everything's okay, everything's not okay. Then the doctor came in and told us my water had broken. Is the baby still alive? I asked. And he was alive, and I was so relieved. But then they explained that the baby's lungs wouldn't develop right without fluid, and that I was at high risk for getting an infection. And it was all so much. My last pregnancy was so normal. I didn't even know that it was possible for my water to break early. Why did it happen? What did I do wrong?
I got the news over the phone, so that was hard. I was in shock, really. I remember knowing right away that I couldn't continue the pregnancy, knowing he wouldn't survive. Once it sunk in, we were just so sad. We were also a little scared. We really needed to know what our options were.
It was a big shock when they told us. We had just kind of sat there for a little bit and sort of held each other. And we cried. The doctor was great. She just let us sit there for a while and told us we would talk to a counselor when we were ready.
I mean, one minute I'm having a normal morning, dropping my daughter off at school and heading to work, and then the next thing I know, I'm in the hospital and they're telling me there's nothing that can be done to save this pregnancy. The doctor told us about our options. One was to induce the labor, and the other was to have a procedure where the pregnancy would be removed. And she told us that we did nothing wrong. I don't remember much about that whole conversation, but I remember she said that, and it was so important for me to hear that.
They had me talk to the genetic counselor. She was the only one who really talked me through everything, so I kind of bonded with her. She let me ask a lot of questions and was very patient.
They told us that we had a choice between having a procedure to remove the baby or undergoing labor and delivering the baby. I've had a baby before, so I pretty much knew what the labor would be like.
We went in to talk to my doctor the following day, and he explained things well. He didn't rush us. He was compassionate. He was very neutral. He never said, well, this is what I think you should do, even though we were like, what should we do? He knew it was a personal decision. He just wanted to give us all the facts. He was wonderful.
I just really appreciated that we had a say in the matter. I had never even met this doctor before. She didn't know me at all. So it was important for us that we could choose. I was already thinking to myself, how am I going to get through this? How will I ever get over this? Knowing that I could have little control over the process. Well, I needed that at the moment.
The two options seemed so different. The surgical procedure is quicker. You're in, you're out. They said I'd be fully asleep or very sleepy. There's a visit the day before, but you go home right after it's done.
That was an intense part, thinking about the two options for ending the pregnancy. Now, I had had a normal delivery for my son, and the labor induction would basically be the same thing. I'd be awake, and it might take as much as a day. I would be able to see the baby and spend some time with her.
Mostly it helped knowing that it was okay to choose either option, that they were both safe. They told me that neither procedure would hurt my chances of getting pregnant again. This was my first pregnancy, so I didn't know what to expect. They gave us time to think about it. We needed that time to really understand everything. We just kept coming back to the fact that we wanted to meet our child, instead of just having the other procedure done and not seeing him at all.
I kept thinking about my last delivery, which was really very beautiful. My family was there. I was so happy. And then to think about my situation, I just couldn't imagine going through birth and knowing that my baby's not going to be alive and me being awake. I just wanted to be put out.
I could hear a woman nearby who was in labor. That was really hard. It seemed so unfair. When they explained that I could have a labor induction and start it right away, seeing a little baby that wasn't alive or something. I couldn't live with that. It would be etched in my mind forever. I didn't want to see it.
I just wanted to have that moment of holding the baby. The whole process felt like what I needed.
I wanted the full effect of what it would be like to give birth, to feel the pain, the contractions, to be awake during all of that, so I could see when the baby came out, to be able to hold the baby. I didn't want to be asleep because then it would be like I was being robbed, like the baby was being taken out of me. Given the circumstances, it's what I needed to move on with this.
Sometimes I wish I didn't do the labor induction because I want to hold her again, but I would regret if I hadn't. I'd do the same thing and just hold the baby because I definitely needed to see her. The nurses were very attentive to my needs. They asked me exactly what I wanted after the delivery, if I wanted a chaplain there, if I was religious and wanted anything particular done. I felt really supported.
As much as I would have liked to see him, in a place where I felt so raw, to be presented with something, so deep, I felt like I had to kind of push that away and just sort of protect myself. I know that the surgical procedure was the right choice for me. I'm so relieved that I didn't have to go through labor.
I felt so connected to the baby throughout my pregnancy that it was really important to sort of protect myself emotionally. I just felt like if I hold the baby, I'm just never going to want to let him go. It would have been too much for me to handle. But the one thing that's helped me through this is that they let me choose whether I wanted to have footprints done after the procedure. I was a little surprised. I didn't know they could do that. So I have them now. I still haven't looked at them because I'm not ready yet, and it kind of makes me nervous to think about looking at them. But I know they're there, and that this baby is a part of our family in a way.
Now that it's all over, well, I'm doing okay, I guess. I've been leaning on friends and family and my partner and trying to stay optimistic, but also being realistic. Sometimes you're gonna be sad about stuff, and sometimes I can have the chin-up attitude, and sometimes I just need to cry. You just kind of got to, don't be too hard on yourself.
At the time, it was so hard. It's not exactly something you can talk about. It's not like talking about your grandfather passing away. Everyone knows how to respond to that. this is different. And at first I felt really isolated. I have a couple of really close friends, and eventually I realized I could lean on them. They were great. I don't know what I would have done without them. They'd come over and just say, "Come on, we're going for a walk." It was good to get out of my own head. I would say to someone going through this, use your friends and let them help.
For me, the grief is this thing that impacted my life, but at the same time, it has evolved. In the beginning, the grief is really much more acute, or like you're sensitive. Things can really trigger your emotions, and your emotions are just a mess anyway, because your whole body is still going through all these hormonal shifts. Now, I feel like I've shifted from being more emotional about it to more practical. Like, this thing happened to me, we will always remember, and it's sad, but we're moving on with life and learning from it.
At first I thought, I won't ever be okay. This was just too much. But it really was true for me, at least, that over time it got easier. It's very difficult to be in this kind of situation. I can't be rational because there are so many emotions involved. I can't control it. I just had to go with my feelings and let them be there. And now, it's not like those feelings are gone. There's a place for them, and there's a place for good feelings again, too. I've learned to make space for the good and the bad, and I am okay.